Welcome to the Steady On Stronger Together podcast. I am your host, Angie Bauman. Today's episode is a Steady On virtual book club discussion on the book Before I Called You Mine by Nicole Deese. I am joined by my best reading friends, Lisa Wood and Maria Jessup, along with the book's author, Nicole Deese. As we talked about the book's themes, we asked Nicole about her own journey through international adoption, about trusting God in times of uncertainty, and how she best discerns His voice among all the others that speak to us. Nicole is such a joy, and I believe this discussion will both inspire and encourage you. Let's listen in. Good evening, Steady On friends. We are so excited for this edition of the virtual book club. We are joined by Nicole Deese. Nicole, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We have been so looking forward to this. We are going to be talking about Nicole's beautiful book, Before I Called You Mine. And I will say, I just right away, I love the cover of this book, but I saw when you posted the cover of your new book, which we'll talk about in a minute, and that cover is gorgeous also. So
it really is.
The books are so beautiful, but I will say the packaging is very beautiful also. So
Bethany House does a great job. So
yes, they do. Yes, they do. So so we are so excited to talk to you. I'm just looking over here so that I can see any comments that pop up. Thank you guys. If you're watching live, if you will, just put a comment, say hey to Nicole so that we know that you're watching. We'd love to be able to talk to you while we chat. Yes. So this is Nicole, and she has written, and you just correct me when I'm wrong here, 10 novels, right? Is this your 10th Before I Called You Mine?
I think this is my 10th. I actually have one that's coming out in October. So I think that there is an 11, and then there's a 12 that was just turned in. So, but I think this is 10.
Oh my goodness. Wow. All That Really Matters, the one that I had just pre-ordered, I will say that, I pre-ordered recently. Is that the one for October? Or is that?
No, that's the one for April.
Oh my
the
goodness.
One for October. Wow. Yeah, October is actually a novella collection with Karen Whittemire and Regina Jennings and Amanda Dykes.
Oh my goodness, you are churning out content. Good for you, girl.
I know it was a crazy last year.
I bet.
I got to do a lot more reading all of a sudden.
That's right. You just add to Lisa's list.
Lisa actually keeps a list of things that we should be reading, and she reads faster than we do. So no, that's good. So, but Nicole is a Carol Award winner, which celebrates Christian fiction, right? A Rita Award finalist for romance writers, and an INSPE. Is it INSPE? Is that how you say it? Award finalist for excellence in faith-driven literature. So congratulations on those acclaims and well-deserved recognition. Absolutely. And she lives in small town Idaho. We were just talking about that, about an hour from the Canadian border. So very, very rural.
Very north.
Yes.
And very cold, I'm assuming.
We have our Kohl's and our Walmart. So don't worry.
Okay, good. I want to say hi to Lori. Lori's already saying hi. Hi, Lori. Thanks for watching tonight. She's a wife to Tim. Tim? Is that right? Okay, good. For some reason, all of a sudden, I'm like, that's not right. And mom to 3. And you are an Enneagram 7.
I for sure am. You will see that.
Lisa's a 7.
I just have
Maria. Yeah, Lisa's a 7.
If you do Enneagram, we talk about Enneagram sometimes on the Steady On with the Steady On community.
I talk about it for hours.
Okay, all right. So just so you know what you're up against here tonight.
Right.
Lisa's your partner in crime. She's a 7. Maria's
I'm
a 9.
related.
Yeah, she's a 9.
Right.
I love me some 9s. Girl.
I'm a 1. I'm a 1.
Okay.
So that's where we are.
You're that organized. You're the one that keeps us organized and going. Yes.
I'm the one that said it's 7. I'm going live, right?
I'm her cheerleader. I'm
that's
the cheerleader.
Right.
That's right. No, because we would have just been talking till 10, so that was good. We're like, it's time.
But we are going to talk. Before we dive into your book, I wanted to pose a question to you, because you posed this question earlier on your Facebook page. I saw it today, actually, where you ask your Facebook community to comment on this question: what's not wrong with your life? Which I thought that was a wonderful question to pose, especially given kind of the the heaviness of the season that we've been in for a while. So I just want to pose it back to you, Nicole. And as we get to know you a little bit, what's not wrong with your life? Would you tell us?
Today, should I do it like as of right this
today?
moment
That will
today?
work. That'll work best for my new 7th friend today.
Yes. Yes, I know. I'm like, don't try and open it up to the broad spectrum. We'll be here for 4 hours. So what's not wrong with my life today? What's not wrong with my life is that I went back to school shopping with all 3 of my children, an almost 15-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a almost 10-year-old as of next month. And it was delightful. Delightful. Good. And I was thinking this might be the first year, even with the mask wearing and the craziness that abounds and the social distancing and, not having a lot of stock, that we just laughed and had such a good time. And I just really enjoyed my kids today. And what a crazy back to school season, we're living in. And it was a very enjoyable few hours. And we got quite a bit accomplished. So that was great.
I celebrate that with you. I actually gave up on school supply shopping. So I always loved school supply shopping when I was young. And I always had this idea that my kids should love it too. And somehow I always ended up in tears because it wasn't going the way. And so this year I pulled up the Staples website and I'm like, just put in the cart what you want. I'm not going to try to take you to lunch. I'm not going to try to make it an event. Just put in the pins that you want. And so I'm happy. I'm so happy for you.
For sure. There's like lots of times where we've just done this simple approach, but today I was like, I'm going to finish this. We're going to do this. And we did it. And we all lived. So.
That's great.
Too many times I've stood in the aisle going, what color folder do you want?
I know it. Yes. Yep. I know it.
So when are your kiddos able to go back to school in person, or will they be at home?
Yes. So they are here. They go to a private school, so they have a little bit of different rules. And their classroom sizes are pretty small. Like my daughter's 4th grade class is just 18 kids anyway. So they're doing kind of that pod approach where they're doing like a few 6 kind of kid breakouts and pods. But so they're going back 4 days a week, which is their normal schedule, starting on the 8th of September.
Yeah.
So,
Good. Well,
so we'll see how long it lasts.
Right. I know. We're in a similar situation with my younger son. He's only got 8 kids in his class actually, and it's a little private school. And so he's going for now. Right. Yeah. So we'll see.
There's a lot of adjustments that have been made, and we all feel good about it to start. So
good.
We'll see. Yeah.
Good. Well, talk to us just a little bit. How would you describe the heart of this book? Talk to us about the title and kind of the heart of the book.
Yeah. Gosh, I feel like every question I could answer like probably hours on. But I know that's a shock for an Enneagram 7.
Well, we are not in a hurry, so you.
Right. No, my husband's like, "How long are you going to be there?" Like, I have no idea. Like, the door, So really, it's funny because I knew probably for the last 5 or 6 years, and just to give reference, we've only had our daughter Lucy May for 3 years, but I've known probably for the last 5 or 6 years that I've wanted to write a book with an adoption theme. And I think that there was probably even a part of me that was like, maybe if I write a book about adoption, like it'll kind of cure me of this aching desire to adopt, maybe that's what I need to do. And so every time I would go to kind of write a plot that had an adoptive theme, I felt like God just kept staying my hand. Like every time I would go to write the plot or talk through a plot, it just was so obvious that it wasn't the right time. And so with this book and kind of with the timing of this book, I had this idea for Before I Called You Mine, really just about two months or so after we brought Lucy home. Like the real beginnings of it, the seedling of the idea was kind of churning while we were in China, meeting her for the first time and about to bring her home. But really kind of in this waiting season between bringing Lucy home and really me saying I wasn't going to write for a year is when this idea started to culminate and kind of come to fruition. And so I used to think like, well, I'm writing a book because of orphan care and because of adoption. And really what this book became even bigger than that, because that obviously is in the story. It's part of the conflict and it's part of the goal of my main character. But really what this book has become and what it really became to me as I wrote it is really to think about how often we put limits on ourselves. And also really we put limits on God about what he can do in and through us, because of, the things that we don't feel we're good enough in, or we have insecurities in, or whatever it is. And so I really tried to write a character that was definitely had her flaws, definitely had her struggles, definitely had her issues. And yet over and over again, we see God move and God act in this story. And I hope that's the heart of the book, is to say, hey, no matter what limitations that you feel like you're under, God can move outside of those, and does, often and does in this story. So, yeah.
Did you experience, I think this has to be a yes, but did you experience some insecurities during your adoption journey also?
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Because you were already a mother. So what kind of insecurities, it wasn't about probably mothering, right? Where did yours come from? Yeah.
There's just mothering in itself, gosh, like being a parent is just really hard. Let's be real.
Amen.
Right? Like it really is.
Yeah.
And I feel like
I'm crying over school supplies. I got it. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Every season now I have two kind of almost like I have one teen and one almost teen or tween, whatever, he's 12. And then an almost 10-year-old. And I'm just like, wow, like the second you finally feel like you have one season figured out, it's like, oh, there's a whole nother season that's coming.
Right.
It's like, don't close your eyes too long, because, another one's on its heels. But, I think adoption such a different, there's this different layer, and so I had read so much. My husband and I had gone to, several different kinds of adoption groups. We've gone to conferences. We've sat one-on-one with several couples. And there's a lot of unknowns, and trauma. Trauma is a part of every adoption story, no matter how that manifests itself. It's a part of every adoption story. It's a part of every past, just because there's that abandonment issue that's there. And so that poses, kind of these big unknowns and these big questions that I knew we couldn't answer this side of things. So many things we couldn't answer this side of things until we met our daughter. And so there was really this 11-month chunk of time where we were just, truly living on faith like I have never ever lived on faith. And one of the things I always say is God was so gracious and faithful to me, and even my personality type, he knows me, that often I would look ahead and see the huge mountain, and I was not ready for the huge mountain, but I could, take one step at a time. And literally our journey to adoption, my personal journey to adoption, was just looking at every next step, because I could not focus on the big anxiety mountain. That was too much. So yeah, it was.
I think that those words are so powerful to me, because I know whatever God calls us to do that seems like that big mountain, right?
Yeah.
Like this is what I do, like in my one tendencies or whatever. I'm like, I am not getting to the mountain fast enough.
Right.
I need to understand what the mountain is. I need whatever, and I can we all, I think, can relate to that in one way or another, getting bogged down in the journey. And so much of the teaching from the Lord is in the getting there, whatever the there is, right?
My goodness.
Yeah.
And to not focus on, there's so many things you had asked. Now I forget the question, but just what the insecurities were, what the anxieties were, right? Yeah. And so I'm like, what is it, Lisa? You know it. Go. Like I see you over there, be like, I'm gonna help you out. No, so but even just
don't team up on us. That's not fair.
Right. But even just the language barrier and the culture aspect, and just there was so much, not knowing. She was 6.5, so she really had lived a good chunk of childhood, and so not knowing how that looked, and so just I think there were so many little components to the much larger component of just adoption in general.
Yeah.
I wonder, she was 6.5. Is that what, 6.5?
She was 6.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you were ready to, something you sparked there. The technology of today that you used in the book seems huge compared to how it might have been in the past, just the apps for language and stuff. Did you use that?
Right. Oh yeah. Google Translate.
Yeah.
That was our
all
best friend.
Yeah.
Yes.
No kidding. Could you imagine
that
doing
really
it without that? That's difficult.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It, in fact, when we brought Lucy home, there was a little boy, so there was 2 other families that, one traveled just 2 weeks before us, but Lucy and, that little boy they had grown up together. They have a very unique experience just because their orphanage wasn't online for adoption until she was only the second child to ever be adopted out. It was kind of run, they just didn't have the paperwork in place to do any kind of international adoption. So it's just kind of more like a home, like an orphanage home for children. So when her little buddy Ben left, he couldn't, for some reason, and he's a really just sharp kid, but his accent was so thick that Google Translate wouldn't translate for them. So it was really, really frustrating. Luckily he learned English really quickly, but for Lucy, so I was like kind of nervous, like this is not going to work, but it did, and so she learned really quick how to. I mean, kids are just so crazy with the technology, right? Like it's like here she was, like never really having even touched a phone, and within like 2 days she was like, we were doing like, this was kind of our signal, like, did you need the translator app? And so she would take it and ask us back. And sometimes it was hilarious because it was so far off what we actually put together. Like we have lots of very funny translate stories. But yeah, she used that, and that communication tool was just a godsend, for us all to have. So
Good. So I'm going to read this quote it's in the back of your book in your author notes. And it moved me so much. And some of it we've already talked about, but I want to see if you have anything else that you want to add. So this is your quote. So much of the journey found in these pages of this struggle to live out the kind of faith that often calls us to the edges of ourselves. I love that. Is my story too. So just talk to us a little bit about what it means to you, what the struggle to live to the edges of yourself. What is that to you?
Gosh, I think it always comes down to throwing off my comfortability. I love to be comfortable in so many aspects of my world. And I think that you never see faith and comfortability on the same trajectory. They're always opposites. And so I think that whenever I'm truly pressing into the Lord and asking him to use me, it will always look like giving up something that hurts a little bit, or that feels not comfortable, or that feels scary. It's that next blind step, that says, I trust you anyway. I trust you anyway. I trust you anyway. And so that honestly is what our adoption story looked like. I don't have probably time to go into the whole story, but, we had known, Tim and I had really talked early on in our marriage that we would adopt a child. It was, of course, and even before I got married to Tim at 22, I knew as a 17-year-old, I did my senior project in high school on a little girl that my youth pastor's wife and her husband had adopted from Romania. And it just sparked something in me, even as a young girl. I had asked a million questions about their story. I had looked through every single photo journal that they had. There was something, I call it now, like when I speak at church, like I always say, God gives us these God-given sensitivities, and sometimes they don't birth into full big callings, but there's something that he makes us sensitive toward. And even as a 17-year-old, I was sensitive toward orphan care. And so Tim and I had our 2 sons. We had started an adoption journey when we moved to Texas, when our boys were, probably about 5 and 3. And we had started kind of in the foster to adopt in Texas. And then right when we were getting our home study, my sister passed away in a car accident, and that kind of shuts the whole thing down.
Sure.
And they had told us, you'll have to wait a year. And of course, that's when my writing picked up, and we moved to Idaho several years later. And we were in the most comfortable season of our lives together, and the boys were finally at an age where we weren't, we could leave them home alone. Like we weren't doing the babysitter situation.
That's
we were
a big day. Yes,
right?
I know. Yes. Why would we mess with this?
I know, yeah, which was my exact question.
Yes.
We go out to this fancy dinner, for our, I think at the time it was our 12th anniversary. And, and we're just talking about God's blessing. My husband's he was just able to take a position where he could work from home here in Idaho. And we were just happy. I had contracts for my books, and we were just happy and good and so comfortable. Mm-hmm. And it was while I always tell this story, but I was eating chocolate cake. I just remember this molten chocolate cake, and we were just finishing our anniversary dinner. And my husband said, I want to talk about stewardship. And I was like, thinking that was a weird thing to bring up when I'm eating cake, but I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm like, I'll have any conversation as long as it involves chocolate cake.
This isn't the romantic dialogue I was expecting.
I know. And I'm thinking he has some kind of charity in mind that he's, I have no idea, wanting to give money to. And so it turns out, no, he's like, no, I'm actually not talking about giving money away. I'm talking about the resources that God's given us in our lives. He's like, he literally said, I don't want to get to the end of my life and regret never adopting a child.
Oh.
And then I put my fork down.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
This is not the conversation that I was thinking we're going to have, and so, that started this 6 month, my husband is he's a 5. Okay. He's 5.
Okay. Yes. Yep.
He is such a patient man, and he is not all gas. I'm all gas. So he is content just to wait. And so he just knowing me, he's like, listen, I can see you're not ready. And I was like, I am not. I was not even close to ready. I was like, yeah, you were very perceptive. So it was 6 months of me really, really, really wrestling with the Lord. And I mean, to the point where I had so no peace. I had no peace. And I would wrestle in prayer because my husband had said, I'm not going to bring this up again to you until you bring it up to me. He said, I don't want to be the voice that convinces you. I want the Lord to do that. If we're supposed to do this, we both have to be yeses. And I was like,
that's a lot of grace. I'm sorry. I'm not going to bring this up to you, even though he felt strongly about it. That's a big thing to say, I think. I'm going to let you. Yeah.
Yeah. It was really big. Mm-hmm. It was really big. And I constantly go back, and I just, even in that, even in his patience and his willingness to just want it to be the Lord's, I don't have the doubt, even on our hardest day post-adoption, I don't doubt that, that we were ever supposed to do this, because the Lord so spoke to my own heart too. Right. We were both in, Tim doesn't struggle with anxiety. So he never had kind of the back and forthness that I feel I wrestled with all the way up to adoption day. But I knew that my yes was at least to the next step every time, you know what I mean? We talked about. And so, so I had wrestled with the Lord for 6 months, literally 6 months, and not bring it up to Tim, because I thought, well, good, I'll just never have this conversation.
Thank you.
I know, I'm such a brat. And
I love it.
Not how it worked. And so, but I literally remember one time in my car, and I was a hot mess all the time. I was just crying to myself, crying to Jesus, driving down the road and thinking, okay, fine, this is it. I'm going to park my car. I'm going to go inside. I'm going to tell him, fine, you win. Let's just say yes to this. I can't live with this anymore. I can't live with this on my back. And I would come into the house, and the house would be a mess, and the boys would be fighting. I'm like, I'm not doing this. Like, why would I sign up for this? And so then it would be like another few weeks. And so finally we did end up having like the conversation, and it was just so timely and good. And God spoke in a really deep way and used other people in my life too, to bring it up to me in a random, but not random ways.
Right.
And so when we finally said yes, like that really was this, it's crazy. The very day that I saw Lucy's picture was a Friday afternoon. I'd got an email from our agency, which was just 2 weeks after we said yes, and that we entered the program with Holt International. And there was this email that came up, and I didn't know like how often these came because I was this newbie, and there was never another email. It was like once kind of a thing, because they were bringing this new orphanage online, and there was 5 kids, and there was Lucy, and I knew that God had spoken to me that we were to adopt a 6-year-old girl. Like it was this, I just knew that in my heart, like for a long time. And so we said yes. We said yes on Monday, because one of my reservations was like how my wrestling was very similar to Lauren's, not because there was a man, but because my career had taken off. And I felt like, how could God so clearly say yes to me being an author and giving me a publishing opportunity and giving me these contracts and these stories to tell, and also be asking me to adopt? Like those don't work together, And so that was this constant internal wrestling in me. And so the Monday that we got, so we had said, yes, we would like to see her file. That Monday, her file came. I promise you, 30 minutes that we saw that file, Tim and I talked about it. We felt like, yes, like I knew I was seeing the face of my daughter. My agent called 30 minutes later to say I had just been offered a 2-book contract with my current publisher. And I would have never in this life turned that down. And I said, no. I said, it's not the season. And she was very affirming of that. But it was the craziest thing, because if that had and they were like delayed on giving me that answer, it was just this weird kind of delaying effect. But I always go back to like, God's timing is so perfect. He is never late. He is never late. And, so yeah, that was a really long answer to that, but
it's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, no, I think it's just a powerful testimony in that trust. And the thing that the Lord's really working on my heart right now about is just paying more attention to the middle part of like the stories in the Bible. The next class that I'm teaching, we're going to really focus on the middle part of the stories, because so often we're like, well, we got this calling, then it was hard, and then it ended that. But the middle part is where those questions are, where that wrestling is, where that trust builds or doesn't.
That's where the business is done.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Or it's not, because we don't push through or cling to him, however you want to. Yes, exactly. So I think this kind of leads us into, I'm hearing the answer to this question, but I'm going to still pose it because I want you to speak to it, because I thought it was very brave the way that you described Lauren's wrestling, if you will, because in your own words, Lauren sometimes is insecure, anxious, avoidant, doubtful, fearful, and failed. All right. And so how did you, I think that's what you said at the end. And I thought, how did you decide? I think that's a little risky, for your heroine to be strong and not strong. Because even though we're all that way, sometimes we don't want to see that in ourselves. So I just talk about that. Why was that the right decision for her to react?
It kind of is a throwback to that very first question of what's the heart of this book. I don't want to read about characters who are perfect, that God uses, like God blesses them from their, human perfectness, because certainly, like, if that's the case, then I'm out of all this.
My story will not be written. That's right. I
know. The Bible's already been written, folks. And so I just felt like, especially with such, I think we also measure callings, and so I'm going to be really careful not to do that. But there are some that just take different kinds of risks and different kind of I don't even know the right word, that just kind of plow through some limitations, that we put on ourselves or that we put on God, like I talked about. And so I knew that she needed to wrestle she needed to wrestle with the things that I wrestle with the things that my sisters wrestle with the things that my friends wrestle with, where we all try and discount God's voice in our life, and God's calling in our life. And we think that we're too ordinary or too whatever, like fill in the blank of whatever that thing is for you. And so I really wanted to show that she wasn't being, that this story, that this calling, that this goal that she had wasn't birthed out of some inherent righteousness that she just had on herself, because none of us are righteous without Christ. And so that we really need to see her kind of work through the struggle. Like you said, like so much of her journey is that middle chunk where we really see her wrestle with the doubt.
I told Ange from the very beginning, of course, the adoption is underlying, but like discernment to me really stood out. That, the discernment that Lauren had to go through in the process. And sometimes she was, further away and closer to, but that really spoke to me. Like, the way she would pull closer, and then, if it got tough, she, like we all do, like we pull back, we lean in, we pull back, we lean in. But yeah, so I appreciated that undertone for me. That really,
I agree. And I'm hearing that from Nicole now where, am I going to write my books? Or am I going to do this adoption?
Right.
And I felt the exact same thing with Lauren when you're like, this is what I think I'm supposed to do. And then you throw Joshua at me. Right. Is that what I'm supposed to do? Did I read that wrong? Oh my gosh, that's the wrestle. Good grief, all the time. Very real. That was very real.
I think, go ahead. Oh, I was just going to say, I think that was something that came up as I was writing. Like, I remember years ago taking a writing class. I think it was maybe through Margie Lawson. I don't know, but we talked about how a good conflict, a lot of times in books, it's like, especially I think too in Christian fiction, there's this like, well, here's the right choice, and then here's the bad, like here's the temptation over here, but it's like this whole,
it's not
like,
always that
like
black and white.
To go to the other choice, it's like so obviously like there's a dark alley and there's scary people and there's all this addiction. Like I think it might be that, and so I think like it was so that really like good conflict is birthed out of having to make a choice between two really good things. And so I think that's that kind of like heart ripping factor is, and that's so often like that was my personal journey too. Like there was this good contract waiting for me. There was this good kind of, career choice, this path. But then there was this call from God that was also so good that I couldn't say no to. So I think, I think that's part of it is that it was two good choices that both had great outcomes. I mean, really, she, so
and sometimes the most dangerous temptation for, for us that are Jesus followers are the ones that no one would raise eyebrows at. Like either one that it's because that's just a hard issue between us and the Lord. Like if you knew if you knew the calling was that adoption, you could take the publishing contract and nobody was going to be like, Nicole, I can't believe you did that. Right.
Yeah.
And those are the most dangerous temptations for us because then we slowly decide to depend on ourselves and not on him.
And we justify and justify and justify. I mean, I even had, I had amazing God-fearing women, older women in my life call me and say, it's okay for you not to adopt. Like that's a really hard journey. And you don't feel like you have to do that, which was very, which in the moment was very confusing because I felt like I did hear what the Lord was saying to me, but I wanted to trust what they were saying to me because that was easier. So there is this kind of, and so it is the further away we walk, from that call. And I think we see that in Lauren too. The easier it is to kind of quiet that voice and justify kind of our next choices.
Yes. I read something recently about what you're talking about with like the older women in your life giving you that counsel, because I think sometimes in our desire to help someone that we care about be more comfortable, we actually will encourage them out of a Holy Spirit stirring, right? Because we're like, oh, we don't want you to feel that angst. We don't want you to be wrestling. So I want to offer you something that's more comfortable. And I take that very seriously because you do want to wrap your and say, it's okay. You don't have to do this. This is really hard. But sometimes like I got really wise counsel. This was probably like 20 years or so ago when I was in a season of wrestling and somebody wiser than me said, when you feel in that place, go back to the last answer you heard. And
Yes,
I've thought about that
too.
so often,
That's really
right?
good.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm like, the last answer I heard that I knew was
Yeah.
from the Lord,
Yeah.
not the answers in my head that are like confusing or
Yeah.
leading me down the dark alley,
Right.
but but the one I was sure of. And so then
Yeah.
we'll get up tomorrow and try again because today
Yeah.
was hard,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with discernment, because one of the things you've said several times is that I really heard this from the Lord. And I know your character, Lauren, especially said she had heard that from the Lord. And I think people sometimes, I want to just point this out. Cleta is saying, I loved this book. So I just want to tell you that she's saying that. So thanks, Cleta. I'm so glad. But I think sometimes people are like, what does that mean that you heard from the Lord? So how is that in your life? Because it's different for different people, I know, but would you be willing to share, what is that like for you? And what was that like as you were trying to write that experience for your main character?
Yeah. No, that's a really good question tonight. And I do think it's a real personal question because I'm always like, this is how I hear, but I can only speak about my own experience. But I have a good friend, Beth, who always says that she's like, I hear God in stereo. And I'm like, that's such a good way of saying it. Like, I feel like when the Lord is speaking to me, I have never heard an audible voice, but there seems to be this in stereo, feeling that come where it's like, so like there'll be many opportunities, there'll be people, coming and talking to me. They'll be like, I'll use my adoption experience. When I was in that, I call it my Jonah phase, because really I was running all the way from God. Yeah. I was like, so when I was in my Jonah 6 months, and I was running, like, it was so crazy because I felt like I could not log on to anything without there being an adoption discussion. I would go into the Walmart bathroom, I kid you not, and there would be a mom there who had recently just brought home a child it was international adoption experience. And, it was just everywhere. Like, I could not escape God's prompting and God's voice. And so there would be sermons, it was like, when you pray about something, I do think that, you open up your spirit, your mind, your heart to receive, from the Lord in all his various ways that he might, speak to you. And so for me, that often looks like God using, God first kind of putting some kind of prompting on my own heart, but then also using the people in the community that God's given me to speak into my life. Yeah. So that's usually how it looks for me.
Yeah. How about you, ladies? Can I just put you on the spot, Maria, Lisa, either one of you or both? What is that like for you when you really feel God speaking to you or God leading you?
I love how Nicole put it in stereo, because that's exactly a very similar thing. But yeah, just everywhere, like songs, like a conversation that people don't even realize internally. So that's
with all the verses in the Bible, the same one pops up 3 times in the same day, right? Or something like that. Like, what is this? What is this?
Okay, this is not coincidence any longer. Like, I get it, Lord, but
I think that the heart starts racing a little bit. You get a little sweaty, and you're like, wait, something's happening right here. Pay attention. And you saw it in the book with some things. I don't ever want to do the spoilers, but
we used to be bad at that. We used to give all the spoilers. Now we try not to do it.
But there were some physical things that happened in the book and those are the kind of things you're talking about. What those incidences, and I thought, that's what happens. Something you would have never noticed.
Yeah.
And it's huge because that's the thing you've been thinking about, praying about, wrestling or whatever.
A mentor of mine described it one time as when clarity and peace come together. And I thought that was beautiful also.
That's good.
Yeah, I know what I do too. I think that's beautiful too. Like, I know what you're saying and I feel peaceful about it, like that. Yeah. Even if it's a long way to the mountain, I'm like, but yes. So
you thought you have more. Well, I didn't know if you were still on that same track, but I just have to say,
I was going to switch tracks exactly.
Okay, good.
Completely. So go ahead. Yes.
I loved Joshua. I love their texting banter. That was so like me. I'm like, and the quick wit of that. I'm like, oh my gosh, how did you come up with that? That's exactly what I was was thinking, I thought you just wrote that so real. I loved him and his patience and his waiting. And oh my gosh, I just loved him.
Yeah.
Good. I'm so glad you did. I enjoyed him too. He was probably my easiest character I've ever written. I just heard him so well. And those texting scenes are my quickest scenes. I loved those texting scenes. And yeah, there was a lot that was difficult to write in this book, but Joshua came very quickly and just was right there in my head. Well, I can't say that for lots of characters. Yeah. He was just there when I needed him.
Lisa was going to give you a hard time about the. Okay, go ahead.
I got two things. I got two bones to pick with you.
Lisa's the one that always.
Oh no! I feel like I need a break.
No.
Okay, first of all, Lauren
Run
and Lisa,
for your life.
Lisa, the sister, I think you should have swapped the names because I didn't so much like her, and that's my name. So that's really difficult. You couldn't know, right? Too bad. It's too bad. And here's another.
Do you know how many mistresses are named Angela in fiction, though? Like, I have to tell you, like, they're always like the mean mistresses trying to steal the man or something. Yeah. So I know. Yeah. So it's just bad. But my middle name's Nicole. So anyway, go ahead. Yeah. All right. So go. Yeah.
Oh, and the other one.
I can be quiet if I try really hard.
The first grade teachers, and Maria's a first grade teacher. And so I was saying, I thought it was very unfair because I like to live in a fair and just world. And to have Mrs. Walker, the old fuddy-duddy, boring classroom, no prizes, no parties. And then the fun Lauren, can you imagine all the parents at the school going, we want Lauren.
We want Lauren.
And being mad that you're in Mrs. Walker's class. I just was like, this has got to be more fair.
But I did remind her that it's reality. So
yes.
But they got Joshua, so there you go.
No one requests Maria either. It's awful. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, that's great. So I saw on your social media recently that you had a girls' getaway with some other author friends, and I just thought, what's that like for you? Why is that an important part of your writing life?
It's the best part of my year. It really is. So I am in a group. This is our 5th year of meeting. It's
I love that.
Yeah, Tammy Gray, Connellan Cassette, Amy Matayo, and Chrissy Barrett, and myself. And we formed about 5 years ago, just wanting an author retreat, but really wanting kind of a working retreat where we could pull together and plot books for each other. And so we had listened to, it was like, I don't know, probably 15 years ago now. There was a podcast done by some authors from RWA, kind of well-known authors in the romance industry. And they had been meeting for, I don't know, at that point, probably 10 or 15 years, and kind of like shared some of their strategies. And I was so interested in that, and kind of shared it with several women. And so we pulled together, and we have met. This was our 5th year. We just met we usually meet in May, but hello, it's 2020. So we had a little, we had to postpone, and then we met just a couple weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. But we come together. We spend 7 days together, which it started out as, I think, 4, and it has expanded because we love each other, because we're women. And so we all leave with at least, we do 90-minute plotting sessions together. We record them. We come kind of each of us with a couple different premises. We fully plot 2 books with each other. Christy Barrett, who is like some kind of amazing prodigy, very, very prolific. Christy writes, she's already at like over 100 books in her mystery genre. Yeah, she's amazing. She writes mystery, romance, and thrillers, and romantic suspense. And so she usually leaves with maybe 5 to 7 books plotted out. I'm very slow, so I'm like 1 to 2 at the like this last time. I just used both my sessions for 1 book because I'm like, give me all the details, all the things, like, but yeah, so we all leave with 2 books plotted, and gosh, we are just better together. I am an extrovert. I know that's hard to believe, but it gets real lonely to have a career. Like, I really don't think I would still be writing if I didn't have the community that I have with these women. I truly believe that. it's not fun to me to write by myself. And so obviously I write my books by myself, but I'm constantly, bouncing ideas off of them and kind of fleshing out, details in the beginning. And so there's not a premise that I send in that hasn't been fully talked through with these women. And so we trust each other. We love each other. We've watched our kids grow up together now for the last 5 years. And it's just, with this year, with everything canceling this year, I can't tell you how many times I prayed, like, just don't let our plotters group cancel again. Like, I just, they're so special to me. And we're better together.
I love that. I think ministry in general, however that form that takes, can be very isolating and lonely sometimes. And it's important to have people to share that with. I think I'm so glad for you. The people that you can trust and love. And it sounds like it's not about competition. It's about really pouring into each other. And that's a beautiful thing, because too often in this industry, I think there's a little bit like, if I don't get my seat at the table, it'll go away, instead of feeling like there's room for everyone, pull up a chair, because God has uniquely called us. I don't know. I think we get that backwards sometimes. So I love that, just that collaboration and that support. That's there. So Mary Armand is on, ladies. Mary has come on the page before to talk about friendship. And she says, sorry, I'm late. She says, I'm in the middle of this book and I love it. And she says, I have a son adopted from Mongolia and a niece from China. So loved the adoption plot. So she just wanted to share that. Yeah. Mary, we're so glad you're here tonight. And Mary, let us know how you're doing, because Mary's in New Orleans. So are you guys like getting, how's it going for you guys? Because I know it's getting close for you guys. So, okay. So I want to know what else the ladies might want to add in here, but also Maria said we had to talk about this before we wrap up. Okay.
Thank you. Angie.
We have to talk about your hair. It's
gorgeous.
It's
beautiful. Yes.
And Maria, she's been saying for probably, I'm not exaggerating, 2 months, if Nicole comes on, we have to ask her what kind of product she uses.
Oh my goodness, you're so funny.
And we saw on Instagram that you were able to get a new hair, fixed up, and we saw you with the coils. And
yes, literally, I am not kidding. Like, my last hair situation was February 29th. Okay. Oh, wow. So I just went in 4 days ago, and it was and I was supposed to go in on my birthday, and then there was just constant issues, with the COVID year, and this person was near someone that was exposed, so now we have to, the whole thing. So I was like, okay, so then I was like, maybe I'll get in before Christmas. Let's set our expectation different. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So I do feel like curly hair is there's an education to it. There's a whole, there is lots of, trial and error. So, I will give you want to know what I use or?
Oh, totally. I do. I just started the curly girl method 2 weeks ago. I'm I'm educating myself.
Okay. She's been straigning for years, and now she's giving it up. She's going with it. So she's actually asking.
I've only ever had curly hair. I have my hair straightened twice a year, maybe, and that is never by myself. I do not have the patience or the muscle. It's a lot of work, I feel like. So I have recently found. So here's one tip: moisture, water. Do not put product on your hair unless your hair is sopping wet, because it there is some kind of magic that happens in water. So trust me. If your hair is mostly dry, do get it wet again. You know what I'm saying? Just go back, because it's not even worth going forward.
You're just wasting your time.
I learned that.
You're wasting your time. Okay. So there's this new curl product that I love, and it's actually very affordable in comparison to what they normally are. It's called Verb. VERB, and it's their curl cream, and it's literally the only product that I have to use, and it's $16 on Amazon. So
all right, awesome.
And I will link it in the comments and the show notes.
So I love it. I love it. It's, and then the other thing I've been doing is getting out of the shower when my hair is dripping wet. I'll put a nickel sized rub, put my head over, scrunch up my hair. Then I put the, like at Walmart for like $5, they have those hair wraps, you know,
Yep,
like
I
the
have
towel
some.
wraps.
Yeah.
What are those called?
Yeah.
They have like a cool name, but I forget it now. Anyways, so just, you know, then once your product is in, then put your hair up in that, you know what I'm saying? Like the little turban, it's called like
the turban.
Turby, top
towel.
turby. So
Turban
yeah, turban towel. So put it up there, then do all your other stuff, your makeup, your teeth, then take it out. Then if you want to diffuse, you can. This was just air dried today because I didn't have, you know, the time.
Do you have natural curl?
Shopping. Yeah, she's like a 3C is what she is. Yeah. Or whatever. I mean, her curl is like,
it really is that tight. Okay.
This is always
it's beautiful.
I
have the one thing, the curl.
I have to update us from Mary, because Mary says, first of all, she says nothing here, not even rain in New Orleans right now. Western part of the state in Texas will get weather tomorrow. But then Mary says, most importantly of all, I'm just teasing, of course. She says, all 4 of you have great hair. So thanks, Mary.
Yeah, thank you.
Lisa and I do not have the curl. It's not us. My goodness.
It's like when you have curl, you want straight. When you
oh my goodness, isn't that when I was younger and perms were the thing, I had my husband calls it important hair, that big hair that we had in the 80s hair. Lots of perming going on when I was younger. Nicole, this has been absolutely a delight. We loved the book, highly recommend it. This book
thank you.
Before I Called You Mine, and you've been so gracious to us with your time tonight. Thank you very much. Tell us about following you. Where can we follow you or subscribe, pre-order? Give us the stuff. And for those of you watching and listening, I'll put that in the comments and the show notes also. So
okay, so I think it's just NicoleDeese.com is my website.
Yeah,
real hard. But I think my husband does that part. And then I'm probably most active on the Nicole Deese author Facebook page and also on Instagram, which is, I think, just again, Nicole Deese author. So real creative on those handles.
I will put that. You know what, though? I think it's supposed to be as straightforward as possible. That's how you're most easily found. So that's good. And I will definitely link that stuff. And talk to us about what's coming in October and in the spring. And then also give us the information on that real quick, whatever you can. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I haven't done my little elevator pitch, so
that's okay.
I'll try and make it concise. But for the novella in the collection that's coming out, I think it's called Rooted in Love. I'm pretty sure. And that is, like I said, it's 4 of us authors, Karen Whittemeyer, Regina Jennings, Amanda Dykes, and I get to be the contemporary romance because they're all historical. So it follows a historical live oak tree. And so there is a connected tree that runs throughout all of our stories, starting in the early, I think the late 1800s, early 1900s. So it ends up being a little over 100 years old. Probably 120 years old, I think. So there's love stories throughout, and then you kind of get to see the tree age and grow. And so that comes out, I think, mid-October. And that's out for pre-order right now. That's through Bethany House. And so it's on Amazon, and also probably christianbook.com and, all the retailers. My All That Really Matters book is a full-length contemporary Christian romance that comes out in April, and it follows a woman in her late 20s who is an Instagram influencer who has done very, very well for herself. She is a twin sister. She has a brother who is in ministry, and kind of her family is big into full-time ministry. And she has this channel. She's kind of distanced herself from her family because her career has taken off. And she basically, to take the next step into her career and kind of into her fame, she is told that she needs to take on a human interest cause. And that if she could do that around kind of disadvantaged youth, that would be best. And so kind of with not the best motivation, she signs up to be a volunteer at a youth home that actually is kind of this transitional housing that takes kids who have gone through kind of group foster care, who've aged out, that are still kind of can receive grants from the government between 18 and 24. They live in this house. So in order to live there, they have to kind of abide by some stricter rules and, go to school and intern at jobs and things like that. And so Molly, my character, starts, it's a rough go between her and the director. It's a little rough go, and they do not see eye to eye on many things. And but she, through the course of several wins on her part, she gets to volunteer there, and it really becomes, the book's called All That Really Matters, because she really sees kind of firsthand, the error of some of her ways, and also the kind of life that she realizes that she wants even more than the life that she has sought after. Yeah. So, and it is a romance. So I didn't really throw him in there very much, but
I'm looking forward to that. I think it sounds
romance.
I think it sounds wonderful. I just creative, unique, but I love it. I love the idea of it. So I'm really looking forward to that one. So. Nicole, thank you so much for being with us this evening. And for those of you, Cleta is asking if the tree dies at the end. I don't know if you can say this or not with the novella or not. Is that like, no.
Read the book.
I'm sorry, Cleta, you're going to have to read the book. She's very, she's so.
I cannot answer.
And my husband has gotten on and is heckling us about having important hair. So, you can sign off now, Matt.
Right.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Nicole. This has been wonderful. And thanks for those who've been watching, and we will sign out now, and we will see you soon.
Thank you very much.
Good night. Before I Called You Mine was the first book of Nicole's I had read, but it for sure will not be the last. A big thank you to Nicole for graciously joining us and sharing in discussion that was both fun and meaningful. We'd love to have you read along with us in the virtual book club. Information on upcoming selections can be found on the Steady On Facebook page, and past interviews are archived on the website. Links to both of those, along with Nicole's website and her must-have hair product, are listed in today's show notes. Thank you so much for listening. I pray that wherever your day takes you, you are walking in the confident knowledge that you are a beloved, cherished child of God. Peace.